Alright, welcome back. In this video I wanted to talk about the order of operations and how that works when you have a combination of fractions and decimals together. The first thing that you want to know is that any fraction you see should automatically be converted over to a decimal form. The second thing you want to do is you basically then perform your order of operations, and last, you always want to round as you have been indicated. Now, I have three different examples here that I wanted to look at, and essentially you're going to have the same direction. So notice the direction just simply says simplify. This is the way, or the easy way, the shortcut way, the mathematics way of trying to say perform all the order of operations that you see. Now notice the other thing that it tells you is it tells you that you want to go to the nearest hundredth. So what you have to remember with that is we are talking about two decimal places. Okay. So the first thing that you need to do is we need to look and see what kind of fractions we have. And so here we have a mixed number. So in order to convert this over to a decimal, we have two different ways that we can do it. The first way is that we're going to go from mixed into the improper and then into your decimal form. Okay. Now the reason I like to show this method is because, believe it or not, this is what most students end up doing, because usually when we're working on math we see the longer method first instead of the shorter method. So to do that, says I'm starting with my mixed number, so I have 4 and 4/5. To convert that into an improper fraction, says that I'm creating one fraction. My denominator is a 5, so it'll stay that way. And then my top becomes the bottom, so denominator times the big number plus the numerator. So when we do that, you have 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 gives you 24 over 5. Now to go from that into its decimal form, you again have two methods. You have the long division method. Okay, so decimal, we've got long division, or you have a 4-function calculator. I highly recommend that you always make sure that you know how to do the long division method, just in case your calculator fails you. Using your calculator is very simple. You simply take your numerator, divide it by your denominator, and hit enter, and we have 4.8. So my decimal here is 4.8. Okay. Now, the second way says I'm going to take my mixed number and I'm going to go straight to the decimal. Wow, right? Pretty cool? So the way that we do that is we have to know a few things about our mixed number. So we have 4 and we have 4/5. First thing that we need to know is we need to know and remember that the big number here represents the whole number. Since the big number represents the whole number, then that means this fraction part represents the decimal. So what this actually tells you is that you actually need to convert 4/5 into decimal form. Again, either by doing long division or using your 4-function calculator. So when we look at that, we have 4/5. So again, 4 divided by 5, and look, that gives you 0.8. So then, in order to actually get your decimal, what we're doing here is we are doing the whole number plus the part, which is the same as saying your decimal. So this is going to be 4 plus 0.8, which gives you 4.8. Now notice, way number 1, we got 4.8. So going from my mixed number to the improper to the decimal gives you 4.8. The second way, going from the mixed number directly to the decimal, still gives you 4.8. Either method works. You just simply have to choose what makes the most sense to you as you're working your math. Okay. So now that we have it down, we have to actually do the math. So to do the math says, I'm starting with my 4/5, which we said was 4.8, and I'm adding that to 3.25. And so I can either add that vertically, or you can go ahead and pull out your calculator again. So here I have 4.8, add 3.25, and we get 8.05, and that is the answer. Now the other thing we have to double check is that we've rounded to the hundredths place. So here is the answer we get. Notice I have just simply 2 places at the end. This part right here is your hundredth spot. Therefore, we have completely answered our problem. Okay. Now let's look at another one. Here, notice the first thing I have is I have parentheses, but I'm squaring it. Now, there's a couple ways that we can do it. So again, I'm going to break this down. The first way is going to be to convert your fraction to a decimal. So I have 35 over 100, and I'm going to convert that into a decimal. So we have 35 divided by 100 gives you 0.35. Now the way that you can do that without a calculator is to recognize that I have 35 as a whole number and I have 2 zeros. So if my decimal point is, say, here on the very left hand side, in order to get rid of my zeros I have to move it once and then move it twice. So I have to do the same thing. Move it once, move it twice, you get 0.35. Okay. So the first way would be to convert that to a decimal. So then that gives us 0.35 squared times 0.73. And at this point, we still need to work our order of operations. So that says we have to do my exponent first. So you're going to take your 0.35 and you're going to square it. Well, squaring it is the same thing as multiplying by itself twice. So we're going to take that 0.35 and times it by 0.35, and this is going to give us 0.1225 times my 0.73. There are no other operations left to do, so we're going to multiply that by 0.73, which is going to give us 0.089425. And then the last thing that we want to do is we want to use the hundredths place, so we would round. So the hundredths place is going to be the second spot. So when we round, we are looking at this spot right here. So in order to do that, we have to look right next to it. This is a 9. A 9 is greater than 5, which means we round up. So your decimal here is going to be 0.09. Now, The other way that we could do this would be to square the fraction first, then convert to a decimal. So in other words, I have 35 over 100, and I'm going to square that. So to square it says you're going to square the top and square the bottom. So again, we would take 35 times itself, which is going to give you 1225, and then 100 times itself. So 100 times 100 is going to give you 10,000. Now another way to square 100 very easily without having to use your calculator is, notice when I do 100 times 100, I have 4 zeros, therefore I have to have 4 zeros in my answer. Okay. So now that we have the fraction here, then we would convert this to the decimal, again by dividing. So we would take 1225 divided by 10,000, and notice you get 0.1225. Again, if we look, we have 4 zeros. So if we were to put, say, your decimal on the end of each whole number, we figure out how many jumps we have to make to turn it into a 1. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have to jump the same on the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That's how you do it without a calculator. Now you should notice, looky here, we end up with the same decimal, which means when we go to set it up, we've already done the squared piece. So here this is 0.1225 times the 0.73, which we already showed, since it's the same, to be the 0.089425, which equals 0.09 when we round to the hundredths space. Okay? Now, the last one that I wanted to look at really quickly here is this one. So notice I'm starting with a decimal, but I have a fraction. So again, the first thing you want to do is you want to convert. So we want to take this 8/9 and we want to change it into its fraction. Again, remember you have two methods. You can do your long division, which says create your division. You put your numerator inside, your denominator outside, and don't forget you might need to add a couple zeros as you go. Otherwise, you can use your 4-function calculator. So regardless of what you do, you've got 8 divided by 9, which is going to give you 0.888 repeating. Okay? So with that being said, we have 4.72, and we're going to divide this by 0.888 repeating. So how do we do that? Well, the easiest thing to do is to take advantage of your calculator. So we have 4.72, and we need to divide that by this decimal. And if we want to get the most accurate answer possible, notice in your calculator you have this parenthesis part. When you hit the parenthesis, this is opening up a brand new operation. And if we go back to the fraction we had, you could input your 8 divided by 9 in there and close it. And that is going to give you a result. So this gives you 5.31 as your answer. Okay. So that gives you the most accurate response. Now, I wanted to point out what a lot of students do. A lot of students take this decimal here and we go ahead and we round this. And we round to the hundredths. Now, why did we round to the hundredths? Well, because that's what the directions said, and so we round early in the problem. So we turn this instead into 0.8 repeating, we turn this into 0.89. So I want you to look at the difference. If I have 4.72 and I divide that by 0.89, what do I get? So let's look at it. I have 4.72 divided by 0.89, and in this case I get 5.30337, and again I want to round to the hundredths place, which is this one here, so this becomes 5.30. So with that, take a look at these two numbers. They are similar, but they are not the same. So the point that I'm making here is this: the earlier that you round in a problem, the more off your answer is going to become. The smartest thing to do is not to round. Instead, save your rounding for the very end. Make that be the very last thing that you do at the bottom of your problem. Okay? So that's in a nutshell everything that you need to know about doing the order of operations when you have a mixture of fractions and decimals. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, keep smiling, relax, have fun, and I'll see you next time.